Welcome to another banner breakdown, this time for the Fire and Ice banner. What I believe to be the last new Heroes banner before Book 3 releases, we have a banner to send off the rest of the Book 2's new characters. This banner features Ylgr, the third princess of Nifl, and King Surtr, who needs no introductions. I believe this is the first ever two-person banner in this game, which is quite different than the norm. Never forget the legendary 6-man banner from the start of the game with 4 colorless units. Anyways, we will be taking a look at the stats for these units as well as their new weapons and skills. I will also be suggesting a few build options. Now, since we only have 2 heroes to discuss, at the very end of this video I want to shortly discuss the teases for Book 3, mainly what is said during the Xenologue that I released today with this banner. That will be at the end, so stick around if you want to hear my thoughts on the story so far. Ylgr is a blue dagger infantry unit, and we really gotta stop sending little kids into battle. She's got 38 HP, 33 attack, 38 speed, 22 defense, and 20 res. To no surprise, she is pretty frail and won't be able to take many physical or magical hits. Her 33 attack is pretty good for a dagger unit, and it's paired with a blazing fast 38 speed, which ties for the fastest among all dagger units. As such, Ylgr is a very easily an offensive unit that you really don't want to let get hit. She'll most likely be best used as a player phase unit to take down targets from range. For her skill set, Ylgr comes with some very good old skills. Glimmer is her special, which generally isn't amazing on a dagger unit, but she has some tricks to make it work. Her B skill is Chill Speed, which is an amazing support skill to absolutely gut the fastest enemy on the field. To help her allies, she also has Speed Tactic, which was previously only on Legendary Lyn. If you were looking for this hard to get tactic skill, trying to summon for Ylgr might be your best bet. Ylgr's kit revolves a lot around speed, and it's because it helps synergize with her unique weapon. Ylgr's legendary dagger, or daggers, is called Ylgr, a 14 might dagger that grants a flat +3 speed, which puts Ylgr at 41 speed, which ain't half bad at all. Its main effect is that at the start of combat, if Ylgr's speed is greater than her opponent's speed stat, she gains +4 attack and speed during combat. So in total, she would have 51 attack and 45 speed with Ylgr active. She can definitely do some damage. Third effect is just the general silver dagger debuff, which is just a -7 defense and res debuff to the target and all foes within 2 spaces of that target. So to get this attack and speed buff, Ylgr just needs to outspeed her enemy, and with 41 speed with a neutral nature, that should be easily doable for like 95% of the units out there. Even if there is a fast enemy, they would just get hit by Chill Speed, so Ylgr should have no problem getting Ylgr to proc. It's not a super fancy effect, but +4 attack and speed is greatly appreciated because Ylgr won't have a stat boosting A skill if you want to keep her new one. Ylgr comes with a new A skill called Sorcery Blade. At the start of combat, if the unit is adjacent to a magic ally, calculate damage using the lower of the foe's defense or res stat. In other terms, the user gets adaptive damage if they are next to a tome user, aka a mage. Important to know that Sorcery Blade is only inheritable by infantry units who deal physical damage. That would be infantry swords, lances, axe, bows, and dagger units. Now, this is a pretty interesting new skill. Adaptive damage is so good because it absolutely messes with units who only stack 1 defensive stat. For example, Ylgr might not be able to deal much damage to a 40 defense enemy, but with Sorcery Blade active, if that enemy were to only have 20 resistance, then Ylgr is basically gaining 20 damage. Adaptive damage can be very powerful in certain situations, and I'm sure you could create some crazy builds, especially with melee enemy phase units. You do need to have a tome user on the team, and they do need to be next to the unit, but in defensive setups, this is easy to get done. For a ranged attacker like Ylgr, it may be tougher to set up, but I do think just having adaptive damage available still makes it a good skill. I am unsure if Sorcery Blade will be able to replace popular skills like Steady Breath, but I do think it can find a use on specific units and builds. If you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments. For builds, Ylgr already comes with a decent base kit. Keeping it intact is a fine option, and all you need to do is add your assist skill of choice and a Sacred Seal. Now, Ylgr is a pretty fast unit, and she is quite offensive, so she is a great candidate for Flashing Blade. With Flashing Blade active, Ylgr can proc Glimmer if she doubles a target that can't counterattack back. Glimmer works very well with Sorcery Blade because the adaptive damage increases Ylgr's base damage, so it can work better than Moonbow in certain situations. That said, if you want Sorcery Blade to be active, you need to run Ylgr with a mage ally and be wary of how you position the both of them. Sorcery Blade is easy to activate for enemy phase baiting, but Ylgr doesn't have the greatest defensive stats to take multiple hits. Sorcery Blade can be very powerful, but its activation cost is a bit tough to always meet. Now if you don't feel like Sorcery Blade is that reliable, then you could just go with the classic Fury and Desperation build. There's a great offensive setup for units who don't want to take a hit, and Ylgr is plenty fast to make it work. Ylgr also gets an extra +3 attack and speed to add to her dagger's bonuses, which is really nice. Replacing Chill Speed with Desperation is a selfish move, but it gives Ylgr some safety if she is dealing with units who can counter her. Flashing Blade still works with this setup, and you may want to swap Glimmer for Moonbow since we are no longer getting adaptive damage. It's a bit boring, but if you want a scary ranged threat, then Ylgr can play on that role just fine. Big Bad Surtr is back and he's ready for some vengeance. As a Green Axe army unit, Surtr has plenty of competition, but boy does he bring some new toys to the table. His stats include 50 HP, 39 attack, 17 speed, 40 defense, and 33 resistance. Good lord, this dude is a tank. His HP, defense, and res are all very good, and Surtr is going to be a monster with some stat buffs. His 39 attack is also very good as well, and while 17 speed isn't good, Surtr couldn't care less. That's because for his B skill, he comes with Wary Fighter, so you're going to have to get Surtr down to half HP before you can start to double him. Surtr's special is Bonfire, and with 40 base defense, that's already a 20 damage Bonfire. To be honest, Surtr doesn't even need his special to be a crazy damage dealer. If you've played the Book 2 story, then you already are familiar with Surtr's axe, Sinmara. To me, Sinmara was a weapon that I thought they would never just give to a usable unit, but here we are. Sinmara is a 16 might legendary axe that also grants a flat +3 defense. That puts Surtr at 43 defense as if he didn't already have enough. At the start of every turn, Sinmara deals 20 damage to all enemies within 2 spaces. My goodness, this effect made Surtr already very annoying to deal with in the story, and now you're going to have to start dealing with it in the arena and other parts of the game. This can make Surtr very difficult to deal with because if you want a unit to bait him, then they instantly lose 20 HP just like that. I would think about not using Armor March with Surtr on a defensive team because the AI will attack whatever is in range, and the 2 movement of Armor March could move Surtr outside of his 2 range space for Sinmara. You don't want the enemy to exploit this, you want them to have to be within 2 spaces if they're going to bait Surtr on the enemy phase. This skill makes Surtr super annoying, and it really means you want to attack him from range and then move your unit out of his range. Leaving a squishy unit within Surtr's attack range is asking for trouble. Now, if Sinmara wasn't already annoying by itself, it happens to work really well with Surtr's new C skill. This C skill is called Surtr's Menace, and it's unique to Surtr himself. At the start of the turn, if Surtr is within 2 spaces of a foe, he gets +4 to all stats for 1 turn, and he also inflicts -4 to all stats on any foe within 2 spaces. Yikes. Basically, if Sinmara hits an enemy, they lose 20 HP and get a -4 debuff to all stats. At the same time, Surtr gets +4 to all stats, so think about it. You try to bait Surtr with your best tank. They take 20 damage, and now they have to fight Surtr with a -8 stat difference. This is absolutely not good for pretty much anyone that's not a decently tanky red unit. Surtr's Menace is absolutely scary with Sinmara, and it basically creates this 2-space zone around Surtr that you have to avoid. Well, we ain't done yet, because Surtr also has Steady Stance 4. If the foe initiates, then the unit gets +8 defense during combat, and the enemy is inflicted with -1 special cooldown charge for each attack. This is essentially the guard effect. In general, this is a really good defensive skill because +8 defense is quite a lot, and having guard in this slot frees up the B slot. If you can put this on a tank who doesn't rely on steady breath, then I think it's really powerful. For Surtr specifically, he comes with Wary Fighter, which means not only does his defense reach 51 altogether, but he won't take 2 attacks until he gets down to 50% HP. Surtr doesn't even let the enemy charge their special, so unless you one-shot this dude, then he is going to mess you up when Sinmara and Surtr's Menace activates. With Steady Stance 4, Surtr is a brick wall to physical damage, and you really want a mage to chip away at him. In terms of physical combat, Surtr is just a monster. For builds, Surtr is already quite the menace. Sinmara and Surtr's Menace creates a 2-space zone of control that should be avoided at almost all costs. Wary Fighter makes it tough to take down Surtr, and you have to move attackers away if they can't just one-shot him. With this type of defensive wall, I would highly recommend pairing Surtr with multiple ward army users, because if you can add another +12 defense and res to his already good base stats, then I don't know how you're going to kill this man. Steady Stance 4's guard effect is a great ability to stall the enemy, and Surtr will slowly charge up Bonfire for what will probably be a one-shot KO. For his Sacred Seals, Heavy Blade wouldn't be that bad, but if Svalin Shield were to ever become a seal, then I think Surtr would be an amazing user. He will be very tough to take down, and reducing his hard counters just makes things even more annoying. Some alternative skills could be sold for Surtr's special so that he can heal up and stay in wary fighter range. For Sacred Seals, close defense just adds more defense to Surtr's ridiculous totals thanks to Steady Stance. For pure melee engagement, Steady Stance plus close defense on top of Surtr's base 40 defense is just insane to think about. If you want to build a more killing power, then swap Wary Fighter for Vengeful Fighter. If you control Surtr yourself, you can put him in advantageous matchups, and with Vengeful Fighter, he can definitely score some nasty counter KOs. Still using Sinmara and Surtr's Menace, they become a nice backup plan for when things get too hectic. If there are multiple enemy threats, Surtr can burn them for 20 HP, and he just gets so many stat points afterwards. Now for Sacred Seals with no Wary Fighter, Surtr's biggest threat is ranged mages. Deflect magic could be used to let Surtr survive multiple hits, and if the enemy doesn't move out of the way, then Surtr will just smack them into the next realm. Again, close defense is the better alternative if you aren't concerned with ranged threats. This last build is concerned with ranged threats, and it utilizes distant counter to make enemies think twice before attacking Surtr. With distant defense added too, Surtr has a ton of res and his defense is still ridiculous. He also still has Sinmara and Surtr's Menace to deal with melee units who dare get in his way. This is the type of build that punishes teams with no strong red counter because Surtr just has so much base stats for tanking. Honestly, this is not something I would want to run into, especially in Aether raids, because you have a turn limit and Surtr will just happily sit there while you try to take him out. While Steady Stance 4 is a very nice skill for Surtr, he already has a ton of base defense and distant counter gives him a way to fight ranged threats. He will benefit heavily from ally buffs and will be a very annoying unit to have to take down. In summary, Ylgr is a very fast blue dagger infantry unit that comes with the new A skill Sorcery Blade. It can give adaptive damage if she is next to a mage ally. As for Surtr, he is a super tanky green axe armor unit who emits a dangerous 2-space zone of control thanks to his axe Sinmara and his unique C skill Surtr's Menace. I would say both of them have some incredible skill inheritance options too, so if you don't really care about them, they still have some value. I think Surtr is an absolute beast, and honestly I think he'd be good for Aether raid defense teams because he punishes you very hard if you can't one-round him. In the story, you could just run away from him and stall out from fighting him, but in Aether raids, you have that time limit, so you have to make your moves count. Overall, despite this being a very strange banner, I still think both of these units are worth getting. Ylgr will probably be more niche, but Surtr will definitely be a very annoying threat for all kind of modes. Now, I'm going to be discussing the Xenologue we got for this banner as well as the new Book 3 cinematic teaser we got, so I will be talking about spoilers at least for the Xenologue. It's only one part and you can complete it in a minute, so go play it before listening to the next part. Alright, so on to some Book 3 discussions. This Xenologue gave us some very big hints as to what is coming next. First off, we see that Surtr is in the realm of the dead and he knows that he failed thanks to the Askr crew. He talks with a mysterious figure named Hel, who is apparently the ruler of the dead and the realm Surtr resides in. It would appear that our next adventure will most likely be dealing with this Hel person, and they are potentially working with Loki. She says that the 9 worlds tremble and change is in the air. Suffice to say that Surtr's death has caused a shift and that the Askr crew will definitely be at the forefront of this outcome. Loki's next line mentions the King of Askr, which is a huge red flag, and I think it heavily implies that the King Gustav is probably going to be attacked and killed. It's important to note that Hel also mentions they have plans to kill the Askr crew themselves, and Loki even tells Sharena that Death's sight hangs over her head. Well, knowing all of this, it seems to match up with the teasers we've gotten for Book 3 cinematic. In the video for Remembering Book 1 and 2, there was a new teaser at the end. I will link this video in the description, so go watch it if you want to see the whole thing. It shows the clip of Sharena crying again, and it also shows the text that they, the light, died once again. The new teaser clip shows this scene of who I assume is Alphonse standing over 2 bodies on the floor, presumably dead. Now, I really don't think our benchlord killed these people. Instead, using what we just learned from the Xenologue, I suspect that those bodies may be that of the King and Queen of Askr. We know King Gustav is active, and we know his wife is also probably alive because Sharena mentions that she writes letters to her and that they live in the same castle, despite not seeing each other much. Assuming Loki's mention of the king is that he is to die, I think that is what we are seeing. Of course, you can't really make out the bodies very much, and heck, that might not even be Alphonse. I'm pretty excited for Book 3 and it's nearly here. If you have any hunches for where the story is headed, then leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video.